Talk Radio. You're in to all things music.
Welcome to Girls Talk Rock, where the musician's creativity finds its voice. And here are your hosts, Tracy Smith and Beth Venus.
Hey, I'm Tracy Smith.
I'm Beth Venus.
And we are
Girls Talk Rock. Welcome. We are here today on our last show before Christmas Day.
Before Christmas, that's right.
Holy Mary, what's going on with that? Hey, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, I'm just
Can you hear me now?
because I can't hear nothing in my headphones, but that's
well,
okay.
Don't worry about it. We'll turn your
today.
headphones
We have
up.
really special guests. We have some guests who are like mega awesome superstars, and they're right here from our home county, Tracy. We
That's
didn't
right.
have to like fly them in.
That's right.
It was just all about come on down to the
You're
station.
the next contestant on.
You're the next contestant on Girls Talk
Girls Talk
Rock.
Rock, right.
And we are so lucky today because we have Peter DeLuke and we have his sons Peter and Dino DeLuke.
That's
but if
right.
you don't know who they are in your hometown world, they are players from Sledd, the original metal rock alternative, yummy, delicious band. And we're going to talk more about that.
Yep.
And also they have this really super cool project called Nemesis.
Nemesis,
which
yes,
is up my alley because I'm just like
We're
all
about
into
the
that.
cover.
Delicioso. So
60s, 70s.
welcome
Merry
to
Christmas.
Girls Talk Rock.
Thank you.
All right.
Ladies.
Everybody's got to get nice and close to their mic so we can hear you.
Thank you for having us,
Perfect.
ladies.
There we go. That's Dino. And we got Peter Jr., we got Peter Sr. Now, Peter Sr., we're going to start with you.
Got to do it.
Okay.
From the top.
Because we want to go back in the day, history.
Okay.
That's where we want
Hello,
to start.
Peter. Hello.
We want to start with how did you actually get your start in music? It was did your parents hand you sticks to a drum set or what happened? Tell us how it
Wasn't quite
began.
that easy.
No?
No.
Okay.
Now, my father died when I was 3 years old.
Okay.
I don't even remember him.
Right.
My mother was left a widow with 7 kids. I was
Oh
6
my
of 7.
gosh.
A hand-me-down saxophone is how I started.
Oh, awesome.
And that was right after Pearl Harbor Day.
Oh.
And I was in a class of about 35, 40 kids. I was in junior high at the time when I started, 12 years old. And if I didn't have some natural ability, I never would have made it.
So you started on saxophone.
Yeah, saxophone. Yeah.
Awesome.
Now, was that because that's what was available in the classroom
Yes,
setting?
yes.
And what drew you specifically to the saxophone? Were you like, that's the one?
I must be honest with you. It wasn't. I wanted to play trombone.
You wanted the big one.
I used to be an addict to radio.
Nice.
Listen to the big bands.
Yes.
I wanted to play trombone like Tommy Dorsey.
Of course.
Right.
Of course.
And I went to birthday parties, and I'd win first prize because I could imitate the trombone. And I wanted a trombone so bad, but I couldn't have it. We were
Right.
too poor. My mother couldn't afford to buy a trombone.
And what year were we talking about?
Well, we're talking about when I started in 1942.
Right.
Right after Pearl Harbor, 41,
Right.
And I took off because I had the ability,
And you said, and you knew that you had that ability, but it sounds like you also had the confidence to say, I'm going to take this and move forward. And so often we see that on this program and just in life, like that is the deal breaker for people. Yeah. They may be talented, but they don't push forward with the confidence. What gave you the confidence to say,
the story that sticks out in my mind is I had 4 older sisters. 2 of them played the piano, played pretty well. And they had been taking lessons with a friend. And I would constantly listen to what they were playing and then emulate it on the saxophone.
Right.
To the point where they'd say, Mother, get this brat out of here.
Oh, wow.
That's our part.
So they knew that I had ability, But it came easy. I must honestly tell you, it did come easy.
Now, did your teachers, were they appreciative of it coming easy? It sounds like you had a really good ear.
Yes,
and
I
so
did.
Did that detract from you, like following the music and doing as class was doing?
When you say teachers, plural, I had one teacher. He was doing this whole thing.
Yeah.
Teaching everybody in the same class.
Such a challenge.
And here I am with the saxophone. I had my eye on the trombone,
Right.
And the kid with the trombone's like, don't touch.
Right.
You know what? The grass is always greener, Peter, so we'll just leave it at that, right?
Sure. Absolutely.
My trombone.
But you went through and you've had a whole amazing career. So let's talk a little bit about like what you've done, who you've played with, and that type of thing.
I had a swing band all the way through part of junior high and high school.
Right.
And it was pretty good. And had a lot of good players, And I also ran track, cross country very well.
That's up Bethy's alley.
I coached for the high school.
But go ahead and tell us.
We had a wonderful coach, Bill Eddy, and he loved jazz.
Right.
But, I went out for a little bit, but I hadn't had enough time to practice. So I used to say, Coach, I can't do this. I'm cutting into my music, And he understood. Well, that was it. I had a swing band in high school. Then my junior year, I just finished my last New York State Regents. On my way home, get home, my mother says, call the Van Curler Hotel. Somebody wants to talk to you. Something about tonight. Now, every June, we'd have a name band come in from New York City, and the firemen had this big dance ball to raise money. So we had the Bob Chester Band. It was that semi-name, kind of like Glenn Miller type of music.
Right, right.
And what happened was the tenor saxophone player, who imbibed a little bit, didn't make the bus from New York City.
Well, that's his loss, but your gain. So you're going to tell us why.
Serendipity.
To my home in Schenectady. So
right.
When I got there, I called and talked to the manager, and he says, understand, we called the Musicians Union. You're probably one of the youngest guys there, right? And I said, yeah, I am. And
I just got done with a track meet.
And he said, well, could you ever get down here? We're going to have like a short rehearsal. It's at the Van Curler Hotel, which today is a community college. And so before you know it, I got the job. And while we're playing during the night, the manager talked to Bob himself, and they said, this kid probably would be good if he could. So he came up to me and says, are you still in school? I said, no, I just finished my last, I'm out for the summer.
Wow.
So make a long story short, I went on the road.
On the road.
16-year-old kid.
16.
16-year-old kid.
So we were hearing stories from other people whose parents just kind of threw them on the bus at 16, 17 and let them go across the country on tours, which I find amazing. But it's totally a different time when you were doing this and getting on the bus and going.
My mother
at 16,
wasn't for it, by the way. She was very apprehensive about it.
I bet.
And, of course, my brothers had just come home from the war,
Right.
And they said, all right, listen, just remember one thing, kid. We have a tradition in this family. We all graduate high school.
Right.
And that's that.
And I had one more year.
Oh.
And I did. But what's difficult about that? When after you're playing with all these great musicians and everything, and you come home, the tour finished in Atlantic City at the Steel Pier. And so my brother was waiting. You gave notice, right? Oh, yes, I did. So all the way home, I'm saying, why do I need another year of high school? And he said, because that's why I told you before. It's a tradition. We all graduate.
We do.
Right, right. So tell us some of the players that you played with in your history, because you have a very storied history. So we want to get into that.
Yeah, well, in the big band era, it was with Chester, and then Shep Fields, Sammy Kaye, Benny Goodman, Buddy Morrow, who's known for Night Train.
Right.
And many others, who were semi-names.
Steve Allen Show.
So the Steve Allen Show?
Well, with Benny, we did the Steve Allen Show a couple of times.
Right.
We did the Kate Smith Show a couple of times.
Awesome.
And it was very nice. Another thing, Swing into Spring with Benny.
Right.
And he was quite a guy, quite a taskmaster.
I was going to say, it sounds like you have and had, from the get-go, a really great work ethic.
Solid.
And, we've talked about this with so many musicians. There seems to be a really great correlation. If you were running state, you were like in a competitive athlete. And there's a really correlative work ethic I see with musicians who are athletes. And I probably should do a thesis on this sometime because I'm such a believer in it. It just seems like there's an understanding from a very early age, if you're in sports and music, that if you put the time in, and especially cross country in particular, putting in the miles over the summer so you can compete in the fall is just such a long-term mentality. Do you feel like that you took that with you into music and it really gave you that confidence?
I do. To be honest, I wanted to play football, but I was too small.
Yeah.
Right.
Like
Rudy.
pounds.
Yeah, go ahead.
However, as I say, I was a fast runner.
Yeah.
I really was fast.
Good. Were you running? What were you running when you were in cross country? What was the length? Was it a 5K then, or what was the race?
It was with the high school team.
Yeah.
I was qualifying at the time.
Running the 3 miles.
And I finally said, I'm wasting too much time. I have to get back to my horn. You know,
I need no 15-minute mile.
because I get into jazz very early.
Nice.
There was a club in my hometown, Schenectady, called the Chicken Shack.
Awesome.
Detroit Chicken Shack. Everybody used to come there. Lester Young, Coleman Hawkins, Sarah Vaughan. You know, it was the black area of town.
Right.
And I got to know Detroit.
And you got in.
Yeah, well, one Sunday afternoon I sat in there and made a little noise, you know.
Awesome.
Finally, he looked at me and he says, Peter, how old are you? And I had to tell him the truth. And he said,
Of course.
You're going to lose my license, man. You gotta get...
Even then, you're like, no.
Back in the day, they didn't put a band on your wrist to say that you were 21 and under.
Right. Yeah.
But
it was a lot of fun, and I sat and I played with some very good players, you know.
And that raises the bar.
Yes.
So just like, again, in your sports, just putting that together, it seems like when you're around that,
yes,
and with musically, and when you're around with other people who are playing at a higher level, and all of a sudden that expectation comes up,
it rubs
do you
off.
feel like that was really something that pushed you along and made you feel empowered?
No doubt about it.
You know, because
and recordings, I listened to in those days 78s and then long plays.
Yeah,
Right.
And I listened to Coleman Hawkins' Body and Soul until that thing wore out. The vinyl 78, you know,
Right.
Oh, thick.
And I could, to this day, I can play that solo note for note, just the way he played it.
That's awesome.
I wrote it out and gave it to a lot of my friends, as a matter of fact.
So did you learn by ear or did you learn by reading? Eventually, were you taught to read?
Good question.
Yes.
It was an ear man for a long time.
Okay.
I didn't have good training. I didn't have good teachers. They weren't around.
Right.
It was during the Second World War. But when I finally got to high school, my band director was Tony Pisano, and he said to me, listen, kid, you got talent, but you got to learn how to read.
That's right.
And he,
especially if you want to play with Benny and those guys.
And I learned to read.
Right.
It wasn't hard. And he told me one other thing that I constantly tell my students. The easiest part of the playing is reading. That's not hard.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
getting the sound and getting all those wonderful
right.
octaves
The tones.
and tune and all that.
Right.
You know.
And play
That's
some,
amazing.
Yeah, intention and all that. Hearing that from a vetted, professional is just warms my heart.
It does. It warms your heart.
Because we've experienced, and as musicians all here at this table, that great people have great ears, and I always feel like they're missing out on the third dimension if they don't read as well. So hearing that from you is really encouraging, because wow, what a difference it made. Did it make a huge difference also for the jobs you were offered?
Well, yes,
you could do
because had I not gotten onto that reading, I would have never been able to sight read, for instance, my very first big band job. Mm-hmm. And I just read it right off. And of course, the jazz always came easy. So that wasn't the problem. So you make your mark, and then, and then good news travels fast.
There you go.
And were your parents like, yippee? Or were they like, what? Like, what was the response of your family?
Well, my mother, being a widow, she was always a little bit concerned,
Sure.
You're awfully young.
You're my baby.
You're awfully young.
or can you make any money at music, right? I mean,
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you a quick story. Later on in the year, when I was doing the bandstand show in New York, now this was simulcast. In other words, it was broadcast on TV, the early days of TV and radio, right? Plus, I was also singing in some of the groups.
Right on.
And so here I was getting paid for a simulcast. Plus, I had to join Astro because I was singing on these programs.
Awesome.
So anyway, my first check happened to go to my hometown because I hadn't changed my address yet in New York City.
Right.
And so when I called, I said, Mother, did any mail come from you? Oh, yes, you have some mail here. I said, oh, open it. It's okay. And so she said, oh, dear. I said, what's the matter? She says, it says $1,039 here. After taxes.
So that is like, what year are we talking about?
I said, that was in 1955, 56.
That's a lot of money in 55, right?
Yes.
Wow, that's like that's like going out and buying a new Chevy, right?
Right.
I mean, pretty much.
I was being paid, as I say, for the simulcast,
right.
But also because I was singing. And I had to join AFTRA also because...
Wow.
To be able to be heard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then she finally said to me, I guess I was wrong about this making a living.
This music thing,
she
right?
She always felt that music should be a sideline.
Right. And that's what a lot of people think.
Not a real job. You know what I mean?
It's interesting to me. What do you think was the difference between your trajectory that you took, and like right away you had successes and you were driven and you were working with some really great people, and I'm sure you worked with people along those early years, from your teens into your 20s, who you thought were going to stay in the industry and maybe flailed off, ended up doing other things that you were surprised maybe?
Sure. Have you ever heard of Scott LaFaro?
I have not.
Great jazz bass player. Died very young.
Yeah.
Died in an automobile accident. Okay. He's from Geneva, New York. When I went on Buddy Morrow's band, the manager, Harry Weiss, called me and said, Buddy's got a Men in Skin Bracer tour, all flying. And Dick Johnson, who I knew, cannot fly because he had a punctured eardrum. So could you do this tour? And I said, I think so. I just got back into town. And so long story short, we went on the tour, and Buddy said, I'll pick you up at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and we're sending the airplane ticket and everything. Well, I got there, and Buddy arrives with the car, and there's this tall, lanky kid, and he's going around me, looking me over. And I said, something wrong? And he said, no. He said, Pete, he said, I feel like I know you. And I said, well, I don't think we ever met, have we? He said, no, but you were in college with my godfather, John Fabrizio, and he used to talk about you all the time, how great you were. But he said, you played tenor then. I said, well, I'm a saxophone player. I play both, tenor, alto, And that was it. Well, from there on in, we became very, very close friends.
That was it.
That was Scott's first band. He had never been on the road before, and I had been around the country a few times.
Right.
And I knew all the club owners.
So you're showing him the ropes a little bit.
So after we finished, we'd go out and jam, So Scotty thought I was, I was the
Crystal, 4
man.
in the morning.
Yeah. Anyway, it was very sad because I happened to be in Paris at the time when I found out about that he was killed in that automobile accident.
Right.
It was very devastating because when he'd come into town, he when he left Buddy's band, he went with Chet Baker's small group, jazz group, and so he'd always call. He'd say, "I'm at the Turf." He loved the Turf cheesecake on 49th Broadway. So it was.
You were like, that was your. So now, still cheesecake maybe is your.
Yeah, well, I'd meet him there, and then he'd stay with me. I had an apartment on West 71st Street, and he'd stay, and then he'd go out, and I'd always say, "Remember what I said about your head. Don't cloud it."
Don't cloud it.
Wow.
Stay
But
focused.
I knew he was into drugs.
That'd do it.
Sorry
That's
to
sad.
say, but he was.
We are here in studio, of course, with Peter Sr., we're calling him, but Peter DeLuke. And just a lifetime of stories and more to come. We're
right.
here with his whole family, actually. And Peter Jr. and Dino are in the studio with us, and we're going to slam you guys into the conversation in this second set.
That's right.
We want to say thank you to Enter Talk Radio for having Girls Talk Rock on
right.
Live at 5. Tracy? You ready to go into commercial soon?
We are. We're going to commercial break. I also want to thank Silver Tiger Production and Studio at CCMA, Red Giant Promo, and we're all doing a bunch of different stuff in town, so watch for all of it.
We'll talk more about it next segment.
Yeah, we will, maybe.
Go take care of these things.
But we're going to talk to the DeLuke brothers and Father Peter Sr., and we'll be back in just 2 minutes. Stay tight.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
Make this your vinyl night. I'm John J.R. Robinson, and every week, music creation comes alive through stories, experiences, and sounds when vinyl records filled our hearts and minds. My friends and I share our tips and techniques used in creation of iconic tracks for recording artists such as Michael Jackson, Eric Clapton, Quincy Jones, and Steve Winwood, to name a few. Vinyl has emerged hot, and the soul of vinyl defines art and passion which burns deepest at night. Tune in.
Hi, I'm Tim Dolbear, the host of Sound Experience on Intertalk Radio. Each week, I talk with top professional audio engineers, producers, musicians, and the manufacturers that make the tools that we use in the studio each and every day. From capturing the perfect take to mastering your final release, and the tools and how the pros use them, we are going to dive deep into their process and learn from their experience. I look forward to you joining us each week on Sound Experience with me, your host, Tim Dolbear.
Hey, it's Tracy Smith
And Beth Venus
of Girls Talk Rock right here on the Intertalk Radio Network.
every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Pacific.
Okay, Beth, they know that, but we want you to know that the industry pro's choice is Silver Tiger Production.
STP is a full-service production agency offering sound, lighting, installations, talent buying, staffing, backline equipment rental, and sales. Kapow!
It's everything in the entertainment performance industry. It's all at
It's all that.
SilverTigerProduction.com.
Welcome to Girls Talk Rock, where the musician's creativity finds its voice. And here are your hosts, Tracy Smith and Beth Venus.
Right, I am Tracy Smith.
This is Beth Venus.
And we are Girls Talk Rock. And we are here with a fabulous family today. Beth, who do we got?
We have Peter DeLuke, and we also have his sons, Peter and Dino.
Junior, that's
Peter
right.
Jr. Do you want us to call you Peter Jr.?
Yeah, sure, that's
Or
fine.
just Junior?
Sure, Peter Jr. is great.
That's how we separate
Welcome
the
to
two
Girls
brilliant
Talk Rock.
artists.
We are here sharing wonderful stories with Peter Sr., who, started his career so young, just in your teens, going off to tour, which is just unheard of. We had Stephen from No Doubt.
Yes,
The keyboardist
Stephen
for
Radley.
No Doubt in studio on interview. And he left at 18.
Okay.
And he thought his parents were going to hang him to dry. Oh, I've got sound. But you at 16, I think that tops it, because so many parents of any generation would be like ixnay on the travel A.
But I must tell you this: I started playing at 12.
So you were ready to rumble.
Right.
Small groups.
Yeah, that makes a huge difference. I think so many kids now don't get the opportunity to play and jam and have their use their instrument with others. They learn,
That's
in
right.
lessons,
Well, as
and
I
they
said
go on.
earlier,
Yeah.
this 1942, I had an ability that if I heard a song, and the popular songs at that time, there
Right.
was all from Tin Pan Alley, that I could play it without the music.
You're
Just,
like, I'm in.
Right.
And I was doing there was a drummer up. I noticed you had a Venezia on your. His name was Willie Venezia.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
classic then,
And
right?
he was well known in the neighborhood, and he found out that I could do that at a jam session. Playing all. He asked me, "How many tunes do you know?" So finally, he came to my house and he said to my mother, "Mrs. DeLuke, we need him. And we'll take care of him. I know he's very young." My mother said, "Oh, he is so young. I don't know about this." And he convinced her. So here I am putting on this bow tie and jacket and taking my horn and doing the job. And so I started really very young, but I wasn't a very good reader because I had bad training.
Of course.
Well, that made all the difference when you started to really do more academic, working with score and working with others and reading big old patterns and playing. Did you find that you went over a hump of oh, this sucks, and then boom, you got it? Because a lot of people with good ears, all of a sudden, just
I can't
it's
really
like
say
riding a
that it
bike.
came hard. Once I was introduced to it, a lot of it was I could
You
figure
went,
it out
"Is that
myself.
it?" Yeah, you're like, is that
Because
it?
music is math. Music is a lot of different things. Composition of a composition, music composition, is very similar to English.
Yep.
Principal theme, development section, all that.
All that intro.
So
outro.
it really came easy, and
Nice.
of course, I don't know. I told you I have a Bachelor of Science in Music from Potsdam State University, teachers Potsdam, New York,
Nice.
and my master's in my performance in. Today it's called a doctorate in performance, and that time was called a professional diploma.
Right.
So I got
Columbia.
three higher degrees.
Columbia.
And that's
Columbia.
awesome. And there's not enough that can be said. The listeners out there, that is such not an easy task to do. It's a stressful major. It's a performance major.
Oh, yes.
You have a very thick skin to have a performance major.
Right.
Take a lot of critiques, and
You have to be devoted,
That's correct.
which
Right.
I was,
which makes
and
all
I'm
the
still,
difference.
and I'm still devoted.
right. And then you have to be open to
Yeah,
learning.
yeah.
You're
Oh,
coachable.
absolutely.
You have to be coachable, right? To
And
play.
it was always easy. If I heard a composition,
yeah.
oh, I want to learn that. So
I'm
I'd
ready
buy
to
it.
rumble.
I'd buy it and learn it.
That's awesome.
One thing I'll say is music's infectious.
Right.
Okay, at 10 years old, he was director of a music school at this high school, and they didn't fund the jazz program, so he'd put these wild jazz benefits together. The first one Krupa did, and I think the first two, Gene did, Krupa.
He did?
And then he wound up passing away. And I was probably 10, and Buddy Rich came to town.
Holy
and
Mary.
Dad had Buddy at the high school.
Nice.
And everybody badmouths Buddy, but I'll tell you something about Buddy Rich. That was a great human being. Loved
Right.
kids, loved youth.
Right.
His daughter, Kathy, wonderful lady, still a close friend of mine. Started her singing career at the high school that year. And I was 10. And I saw Buddy play, and I became a drummer. And I started playing
Fourth
professionally.
grade.
I started playing professionally at 14 years old.
Right. Now, I was going to say, now you guys are listening to Dino DeLuke, which is one of the brothers, and we're also talking to Peter Jr. now.
Yeah, when he started playing, this is Pete Jr., he,
Right.
at 14, I was one of the roadies in his band because I came out a little bit later.
You
But
good
both
man,
my
toting
brother
his
and I,
stuff around.
we started on different instruments. I was an aspiring trumpet player, and I played for many years. I studied with Peter Crino and a really well known trumpet player and teacher, Bernie Priven, who was
Glenn Miller's lead trumpet player.
Benny Goodman.
Wow.
Glenn
absolutely.
Miller.
And I'll tell you
Artie
something.
Shaw.
Nice.
He, not nicest guy in the world, but I got something. Even though I went on and started becoming a keyboard player, I taught myself how to play keyboard. I had some opportunity young for some piano lessons, and I really wasn't into it. I loved the trumpet,
Right.
But every one of my trumpet lessons was to a metronome.
Right.
So what I really got, you need elements of music to be a professional musician down the road.
Right.
So he also taught me time. He taught me tempo. So later on in my years, as I'm recording or I'm playing to a click track live, it never was difficult
Right.
because I would always think about it and say to myself, hey, Bernie, I love you for that, man. He's since passed on. But you get different elements and you get different influences. Of course, Dad right here, our father, trying to live up to those shoes and expectations. It's a very difficult thing. But the neighbors would come to us and they'd say, Was that Buddy Rich that just drove away from your house? Or did I see Gene Krupa at your house last week? Mel Lewis, the famous. Who are these? How did your dad know these people? And Dad and Mom had always told Dean and I, are like, when they start, the neighbors, just be polite, but don't get into it, and don't invite them over, and don't tell them that it's.
Just be cool.
Those people don't want to be annoyed,
Right?
They're here
Exactly.
and they're just nice people, and that's it. So
Stan Getz was a neighbor. He lived a couple miles away. What happened was Mel Lewis wanted to live in Manhattan. We had an apartment there, and he wanted to move back to Westchester in Irvington, and Mel had this house, so they switched. And
Wow.
And I wound up with a nice set of drums out of the deal. But my parents were pretty amazing people. My mother worked for Buddy at Buddy's place, did publicity there, worked with Abby. And as a kid, I grew up pretty amazing stories and watching and seeing all this,
She saw the standard.
John Faddis and people like they were just amazing musicians.
Mom was the quintessential wife and mother because the tolerance of, generally speaking, and it's probably this way for female performers and stuff, but, the spouse or the significant others, it's hard.
Staying at home while they go on tour.
It's hard.
Yes.
Doing this, it's hard for them to accept what we do because, let's face it, you're not working 7 in the morning till 3 in the afternoon. That's not what this gig's all about.
That's
it's
right.
a whole different. And you're not always in town. Dean and I have done some touring nationally, and the lifestyle is not what normal people. Normal people are the ones that buy the concert tickets, come to the show, have a few drinks, have a great time,
and leave.
and they go home.
Here's an
That was
example.
awesome.
Peaches got engaged, 2 years ago? And I got engaged recently, April. I'm getting married in September.
Congratulations.
I did it big. At House of Blues, we were playing a show.
I saw that.
Nice.
And I embarrassed her. She said to make it memorable. So
That's right.
Good man.
Diane said to me, you made it memorable. So
Nice.
we're getting married this year. But most people get married in their 20s, 30s,
Right.
even their 40s. We're in our 50s.
Right.
Hey, love is love.
Never
baby.
too late.
Make it do what you do.
That's right.
Gosh,
That's
I'm happy to hear.
My
it.
girl's cool. She puts up with it, and she flies out and sees us, and she's been pretty amazing for 10 years, and that's why she wound up getting a ring out of me,
So
There you go.
So when Dino was 10, he didn't know how to break the news to my parents, and he just kind of started to cry. Dad, you remember the story? Go ahead, Dad.
Well, yeah,
he
he started with a drum class, and he was good.
we saw him was playing sax, and then he came to...
Well, that's true, but then he said he wanted to play saxophone. So he was in the class with saxophone. It was kind of funny because he was the best kid in the class. Because he was my son, I didn't want people to think that, I was showing favoritism.
Right.
But he had it. So I bought him his own saxophone.
There you
go. Nice.
And then summer school was over, and so finally, the first day of September, school starting, I said, Dean, I guess there's going to be a beginner's band. You're going to be ready, And he said, he started to cry. I said, what's the matter? He said, I don't really want to play. I want to play drums. I said, okay. Well, so saxophone is not it. No, I know you bought me a saxophone and everything like that. But he said, but I really want to play drums. I said, then forget about it. Don't worry about it. You're going to play drums. That's it.
So did you take the sax and trade it in on the drum set, or
no,
what did you do?
I kept it for a while.
Because you're like, I'll play that sax. Yeah. I can do it.
Nice.
Now, when you started, on drums, did you start with a full kit, or you like?
I started with a Ludwig snare drum. That
good man. Oh, you're so. I just love hearing this.
He actually started with the pad first.
Pads first. Right. Discipline. Always.
Later on, when he got his drum set, my mother would scream through the the vents, the heating and the central air conditioning vents, because growing up in New York and in the East Coast, you have basements, and she'd scream, "Stop it!" She'd look at me and say, "You go down there and you tell your brother to stop. He's been going at it for 3 hours." I said, "He's practicing.
He's happy."
That's right. I mean, how else do you expect them to learn, right?
Well, being a musician's kid had benefits. We had our own studio in the basement at every one of the houses we lived in.
Makes such a difference.
I know. I'm from Ohio. And we had a basement.
And luckily, there was always a piano. And here I was at about
He'd jam on all my keyboard players' pianos.
14, nice. I just, I started, kind of, the trumpet thing started to kind of phase out. And I was like in between, like, jobs, but I was in between instruments. But I just would sit down at night, and I just started kind of like, there was always a piano available. So my dad would stop down once in a while and say, why don't you let me teach you the right way? Which I probably should let him do, because I'm an ear player. He talked about how he played sax by ear. I really never have studied keyboards and piano. And certainly there's so many people out there. I have so many friends and colleagues that they're accomplished. People will say, oh, you're so great, you're so this, you're so that. But I know the real skilled players, and they have it over me, and they still do. But when it comes to becoming a rock keyboard player, that's a different approach. And some of the greatest classically trained keyboard players, they can't make the transition. It's a different feel. It's a different approach. It's a whole different thing.
Well, tell us like some of who the influences were on you early on musically.
Greg Allman was huge on me.
Okay, there you go.
And then Ray Manzarek. John Lord from Deep Purple swung me into the harder, heavier type rock. Jan Hammer was my progressive side.
There you go.
These four guys. Billy Powell, Skinner gave me my blues and R&B,
As I say, that's a lot of rhythm keyboard.
Ray Manzarek probably is the reason why I love playing classic rock. I mean, there's so many different influences coming your way.
Right.
So let's give our listeners just a little head start where we're veering into now, because we have in our wonderful studio here 2 of the 5-piece of Sledd and Sledd. I love the double D.
Yeah, double D.
It's like a heavy alternative rock band, and they've toured with Oyster Cult. They've toured with Dokken, with Great White, with Jackyl, with
Tesla,
Queensryche, Tesla.
The names go on.
We could go on and on. We want you guys to look them up, of course, at www.sleddweb.com if you want to get all the details. But they're in studio with us right now, and they're brothers. And so, before we want to talk music, we want to talk tours, we want to talk all that stuff. But really, the family dynamic is what we're so interested in, because when you have brothers in a band, it's like having a married couple in a band. You have very strong opinions, and you're probably not scared to share them with each other the way you might be a little more diplomatic with another musician.
Well,
but maybe not so much with each other. Yeah.
One of the things I want to say, though, about Sledd and we went the rock trail to rock roll. We had every opportunity to play jazz and play and different styles of music. So, Ken Norton, the great heavyweight champion fighter, his son ended up being a great NFL football player.
Right.
Both professional athletes, but our road was a little different direction than what Dad was on. We went into the rock road.
And it's the time.
And we got into, heavier progressive type rock. And in 1995, we sort of disbanded Nemesis, our cover band, which is now coming up on 30 years. We decided we were going to focus more on Sledd, this new band we'd created. And we started writing our own music.
It was Cary Rothman, Pete, myself, Mike Feminella, and Doug Johnson. And Cary's still a member of the band.
We're still
a big-time player. The best lineup we actually have had of Sled, I'm convinced, is the one right now with Keith Greenwood.
Yeah.
And Ron Hough, tremendous bass
these
player.
guys are really good
and
players.
They're seasoned vets when it comes to going on the stage.
Totally.
And they know what you
games.
want for the sound of
I
Sled.
I handpicked these guys pretty much.
And the songwriting has never been so much smoother. And at times I've been the primary songwriter, and at times I took a step back with different members, guys who sort of wanted the chair. And when you're playing a musical group, you have to be a team player to succeed.
Right. So when it comes to your writing as Sled in your original music, do you come in with an idea and then have everybody else put their parts down, or do you come in with the whole song in your head and say, this is kind of what I want you to do, this is my idea for this song? Or
sometimes he does.
For me, it's a gift. It's an added gift. It's the only way I can say. People say to me, how do you write? And I said, think of like a record player just going on in your head. You just start getting these melodies or these different patterns.
Yes.
It's almost like being psychic.
Yeah.
And it just, sometimes I can write a song in 5 minutes. The last song, one of the songs on our latest album, which is Get Rich Quick Scheme, I wrote a song called The Raft. I wrote The Raft in about 10 minutes. We have another song from on that album, our slow song. Oh God, what am I saying?
Nina's Courage.
Well, no,
Sail on.
Yes. My mind. I must be nervous. I'm doing an interview. No, Sail On. It took us probably 2 years to write that song, and we had other guys collaborating on that song with us. But more importantly, we sometimes it takes a real long time for that missing piece to the puzzle to come. And I came up with it. I'm like, I finally got the part for this. Right. So every song is a different animal. Every melody is a different approach, and every songwriting idea. But the greatest thing about what's going on now, Keith is a really proficient songwriter.
No, he's great.
He's awesome.
He's great.
And Keith has come in with we have some new stuff.
So is Ronnie.
Oh no! Everybody has a place and at a time. So what we have going right now, which is really cool, is if somebody has 2/3 of a songwriting idea, somebody else like Ronnie Hough, our bass player, might say, "Dude, I got the other part right here." Oh, dude, that's great.
But I'll tell you one thing. I got to tell you, Cary Rothman has stepped up on these last couple of records. Wrote tremendous lyrics. Wrote great vocal lines. Him and Pete pretty much write most of the vocal parts. And it gives us our signature
I write
sound.
a lot of the melodies, but Cary, Cary's got to sing them. But Cary has great ideas himself. Cary Rothman is so underrated. So many people have no idea how good of a vocalist this guy really is.
Right, and I've heard your stuff. And I suggest everybody go to sledweb.com, and you can click on and you can see the Get Rich Quick Scheme, and you can hear other songs like Fight for the Title. Love that video, love that song. We'll talk more about the inspiration about that. But we're going into the third segment. When we come back, we want to talk about
I want to talk about signature sound.
Yes, not only signature sounds, but we want to talk about some of the tours you've been on and some of the places, some of the stages, like how many people you played for and that type of thing, because that's what everybody wants to hear, and how you got there, more importantly, how you got there.
People know they're seeing Sled.
So we will be back in 2 minutes. But in the meantime, thank you to Enter Talk Radio for having Girls Talk Rock on their programming, on their network.
Great things to come. We're going to talk about in the third segment. Come back with
Sled.
Right back.
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear, host of Sound Experience here on Intertalk Radio. And Source Connect by Source Element is the essential tool that we use to link between my studio in Austin, Texas and the WS radio station in San Diego. Now with Source Connect, not only can we communicate in real time and with HD audio, but it's synced up and is of a high enough quality that I can use it for real-time ADR work, remote recording and overdubbing, and it even allows me to remotely control a DAW. Source Connect by Source Element. Affordable, high-quality audio and video connection over the internet for all of your production needs.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Girls are talking rock again.
And people are listening.
Today we're talking bands.
Let's talk promotion. Red Giant promo, graphics, EPKs, video, photos, social media, and brand building using content marketing.
But let's talk studio at CCMA, which is events, rehearsal, tour prep, piano, guitar, voice, rock band, lessons, workshops, and clinics. Yeah.
Both proud sponsors of Girls Talk Rock.
Well, get the lowdown on these services and contact me, Tracy, at girlstalkrock.com.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
Welcome to Girls Talk Rock, where the musician's creativity finds its voice. And here are your hosts, Tracy Smith and Beth Venus.
All right, I am Tracy Smith.
I'm Beth Venus.
And we are Girls Talk Rock.
Welcome,
and we are
welcome.
back for the third segment with the DeLuke family.
We are.
We have Peter Sr., who is a very seasoned gentleman,
Bad
musician.
Mamma Jamma.
Played with everybody from Benny Goodman to Stan Getz to... Did we hear Frank Sinatra or did we... Okay.
Yeah.
Did we hear the Frank Sinatra story?
Got KUSI when Frank Sinatra passed away. What was it, about 95?
Yeah.
Tell them the story. It's a great story.
Both ABC and NBC called the Musicians Union. I'm vice president there. And they wanted to know if there was anybody that had played with Frank. And so Eddie Arias at the time, he's no longer alive, but he said, yeah, our vice president, Pete DeLuke, So they said, well, can we come over? So they both came over from both stations and interviewed. He wanted to know about Frank, what kind of a man he was, and exactly how I got on the situation, and anything I could tell him. And it was televised. It's really very nice, very nice. And I told him the truth. Frank was, without a doubt, the most unbelievable musician.
Just the real deal.
The real stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, he knew what he wanted from his conductors, and on recordings, he knew exactly how he would go over that arrangement and say, I want the strings to do this, and I want to do that, and I want to do that.
Awesome that somebody
I worked
had
with him
that much.
at the Atlantic City, at the 500 Club, Skinny D'Amato's place.
Skinny D'Amato, what a name, right? Shout out to Skinny D'Amato if you're listening.
He had just married Ava Gardner.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it was kind of a little contentious, and the fact that he had kids and was married to a lovely woman, Nancy Senior. But Dolly was there. She came in, living in New Jersey. It was his mother, Dolly.
Wow.
But he was, every night, a new setup. Drinks, sandwiches. And don't give the sandwiches you had from last night fresh.
Yep.
He really respected his musicians.
Wow.
Took care of him.
Tell you a story that really knocked socks off. Got to know him, we were rehearsing. Finally, I said, hey, Cheech. And he said, what'd you call me? I said, Cheech, I know your real name is Francesco. He flipped out. He just could. He said, nobody's ever. How do you do that? I said, I'm Italian. I know what that is.
That's right.
Cheech is what we called Franks.
Right.
Especially you,
You
Frank
know who
Stalber.
you are.
Yeah.
I love how you call him Franks. That's just amazing history right there.
Yeah, so it was a kind of a mending of, a rather molding of our personalities. And he was great.
Right.
He was great every time I saw him. Same with Tony Bennett.
Wow.
These are men, though, that
Marvelous.
when you talk about them, you say this is somebody who knew exactly what they wanted.
Yes.
And they drew in to create what they wanted and create their signature sound within an arrangement.
Yep.
And that's so
Frank
important.
was
They're
the top of the
impressed
heap.
upon you.
Top of the heap, Frank was.
Right.
Literally. Yeah.
I mean, they were all good. Tony Bennett.
Wait, didn't he
Julie-
sing a song called Top of the Heap?
Yeah, something like that.
I could
Something like
hear
that.
him singing it when you said
Yeah,
it.
Right.
But Tony Bennett and Julie LaRosa, by the way, who these guys remember, I conducted for two different concerts for Julie because his conductor was sick at the time.
Right.
He just passed away, and I really feel bad about that.
Tony
But
Bennett just had a birthday, and Dad, played with him too, right? Yeah.
5 different
Tell
times.
them about the watch Frank gave you.
Well, yeah, believe it or not, at the end of that job, and he was broke. He didn't have any money at that time. He had just married Ava Gardner. And word got around that but he still had that set up every night for the band. He respected his musicians. And at the end of the thing, he said, hey, come here, Cheech. He gave me this watch, gold Longines Whitnor.
Wow.
And, that cost a lot of money in those days.
Yes.
That was in the 50s.
That was the big company back then.
He still has a watch.
I still have it. Wind up, take care of it.
Awesome.
But he was truly, without a doubt, the most amazing singer, human being. Big heart.
Right.
Very big heart.
And
That's
that
awesome.
transcends into their performance and their music and their career and
no doubt
the
about
network associates you have to work with. I mean, when you hear this about great artists or just anybody in great careers, that's kind of a common denominator. It's so nice to hear that is something that was noticed by you, that you picked up on.
Can anybody name a more successful, more popular professional musician in the history of music? I mean,
generationally,
not to take away
knows.
from Beethoven, but
other than Elvis,
Elvis,
but yeah,
sure,
I mean, there's a few certain
Frank
names,
Sinatra.
But yes, he's
I
it.
mean, and
he's
people
it.
find out like, dude, your father played
And you played with
Sinatra?
Junior too, didn't you, Dad?
Wow.
No, I never played with Junior.
Oh, I thought you did.
No.
After the television interviews, people were calling my house. Did your father really did play with Sinatra? I said, well, why would I lie?
He's the man.
He used to call
kidding.
my house when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Hey, it's Frank. Is Pete around? I knew who it was. Of course, it's Frank Sinatra.
Right.
My mom would get on, oh, hey, Frank, how are you? That kind of thing. It was amazing.
Yeah.
It's a funny story. I'll never forget. We were, I think, in Saratoga, New York. I was a kid.
Racetracks, baby.
And Dad was playing with Tony Bennett. But that afternoon, he was going to rehearsal. And he said to my mother, he goes, well, Torrey Zito is conducting tonight. Now, being around the house, I knew Torrey Zito was a tremendous jazz piano player.
Right.
But he was also Tony Bennett's conductor.
Arranger.
But he was also one of my dad's close friends.
Right.
And so
He was with me the night I met my wife.
Oh, that's
That's
cool.
the story I was going to get to.
And he was she was in nursing school at St. Francis up in Poughkeepsie.
Right.
And her girlfriend was in, and Tori really happened to be visiting me. I was at the Edison Hotel with Henry Jerome's band, and Tori came in and we hung out, and then of course he was with me when we met the two girls.
Right.
Another thing that I remember is my dad played with this great jazz guitar player Gene Bertoncini, this great vibe player Mike Maneri, and this great jazz piano player named Johnny Morris. Oh yeah. And they had their own group, but all those guys wound up with Buddy Rich in Buddy's band.
Wow.
And I was asking
Thanks
my
to
father.
Very cool.
But also another great story too. So Dad played the Edison Hotel here in the late 50s, Midtown Manhattan, and during the summer months, he'd get the same visitors every night. Guys from the New York Yankees would come in.
That's very cool.
He had a relationship with Yogi Berra and
No way.
who else? Dad, who else did you used to?
Just
they
about
come up to the
all the
bandstand.
guys.
But Yogi loved him. He's like, he knew that he just had a bond with Dad.
I love how he's so cool about it too. It's just all the guys.
Well,
it's
it's
just
funny.
the guys from the
Rocky
Yankees.
Marciano.
Yeah,
just the guys.
Marciano was
Rocky
loved
knew
Dad.
my
The
dad pretty
Rocky.
well. Yeah, the Rocky.
Yeah, I met Rocky when I was at Latin Quarter.
Right.
And I was engaged to a girl I was supposed to get married to, and it didn't work out. And
Thank
I
goodness.
come out of the phone, and Rocky said, "What's the matter?" I said, I don't know. I didn't want to get into it. He says, "Come on, tell me about it." I said, "Well, I've been going with this girl for 6 years, and I realize now it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
I just broken the wedding date. We're supposed to get married. It was right around Thanksgiving at that time.
Right.
We're supposed to get married December 27th.
Wow.
Already had the shower and the whole thing,
Oh.
And so Rocky was very comforting and very nice and good
Well,
guy.
that's nice of him.
One last thing. So the night before the third game of the 56 World Series, the infamous World Series game where Don Larson threw a perfect game,
Right.
Dad got offered tickets, and he was at that game.
Oh, that's amazing.
And I always said, well, where's the stub, Dad? It's worth probably $100,000 on eBay. He goes, I threw it away. What did we know? It was just a baseball game in those days.
Right? It's just a baseball game.
I bet you it's in a box somewhere.
It was more than just a baseball game.
You might want to look.
But,
It's probably in a box somewhere.
It's amazing about you meet these, and they're all human beings. They just happen to be in
Everybody's
that, really. So when you tell people this and they say, "Oh my God, really? Oh, I can't believe it." It was.
Oh, dude, he was a guy on the block,
I
right?
remember
Come on, they were all just
when we were
guys on the
kids.
block.
He took us to Mickey Mantle's restaurant.
Right.
And then he took us to Jack Dempsey's restaurant.
Nice.
Got to meet all these guys.
What a wonderful childhood and what a
Joe
wonderful
Namath?
Joe Namath
upbringing.
was his buddy.
Joe
They
Namath.
were pretty good
That was
friends
my
because
buddy.
And then later on, here Dean and
Nick
I
and him owned Bachelor
rubbing
Street.
elbows, and we know a lot of very prominent musicians. I mean, we've had the opportunity of working with people like Al Petrelli, who's in Trans-Siberian Orchestra, played in Sabotage. We did some recording and remixing with Al. What was it 1990? I think it was. No, it was 2000, 2001. We were in Paramount Studios, and Al, just brilliant musician. We had a chance to work with Mark Kendall from Great White. Mark managed Sledd for 3 years, I think it was. Brian Wheat from Tesla, who's a close friend of ours, and not only that, he gave us the opportunity to tour nationally. Not once, but twice. We've been out with Tesla. We did a national tour,
and that's where I want to go next. I think, because some of the listeners might want to know where. Have you played, and how did you get on these tours? And let's talk about the logistics and the networking.
Well, here's the cool thing. It's a great story, one of our stories. Now, so in March of 2009, I'd made contact with Brian through some record people I know, and they said, "Hey, why don't you give Brian Wheat a call? Maybe he'll do something with it." This is Rod Kluka. He was president of Columbia Records for many years. Him and John Weekland, they're both big-time record execs. I've known them both personally. Big Sledd fans. And Rod had said to me, we had a phone call. He goes, "Pete, I'm going to give you Brian Wheat's number. Give him a call." I said, "Brian Wheat from Tesla?" He goes, "Yeah, dude, give him a call. He's producing bands. Just call him."
Why not?
So I talked to him, and he goes, "Hey, you know what?" He goes, "I'm going to be in San Diego house. Well, bring me down anything you guys have done. I want to hear what you guys sound like." And this is kind of like, the internet was kind of starting to emerge.
Yeah, right.
Not now where I could say, "Dude, check out this link here." Go right.
Right.
It wasn't quite that far advanced 15, 16 years ago. So I sat. He got in the car with me. He goes, "You want to come in, man? I got a show." I said, "I can't. I'm on my way to my own gig." It was like a Friday night.
Hello.
Are we still on?
It's okay, because I still like hearing the story. Everything just crashed, actually.
We can go back on it.
We can go back on
You lost your signal.
No. Decided we wanted to do an update right now.
Oh, my God.
In the middle.
Hence the internet. As I'm talking about the internet, boy, isn't that...
This is good, though, because we're going to be going into our last, 7 minutes, and I want to get a little bit of your story getting booked, and then in your story,
Dean can pick up
for a little bit of what you think makes your signature sound, and then we have something called Quattro Questions, and then we're done. Oh my gosh! So, I can still hear it, so I'm feeling very happy. This never happened. How did it happen for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, this is this is the Christmas
Victimized
show.
by the one thing I was just talking
Hold
about.
on,
the
did
internet.
you touch it? I'm always like that guy from Jurassic Park who just touches the screen. He goes, I'm like, I don't.
Ghostbusters.
I'm not the technology person either. So yeah, I always kind of just like, well, it is what it is.
What's happening up in Sedona?
What's that?
What's happening up in Sedona? Is there a festival going on?
No, I wanted a white Christmas. So my husband and I have been going to Don Hole's Cabins in Sedona, Oak Creek for the last 25 years. We've never missed a year.
Actually, terrific. I realized something, guys.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and let's start from that point. Because I do have the backup going.
Okay. Let's do it. I'll pick right up where we are. Let me know when we're live, and I'll.
We're not going to be broadcasting, but let's finish it up,
and we'll put it in on the archive.
Okay.
So when we got dropped off, we just want to pick back up.
Yeah.
With Mr. Junior here.
The internet has failed us for a little bit. Okay, so Brian invited us up to go and record with him at J Street Studios in Sacramento. We went up in March, and we did a little rearranging on some of the song. He goes, "You know what, man, this song needs a chorus. This song," he goes, "You guys, first night we got there, we played the whole season, played the whole set. I want you guys to play the whole entire set for us." So we did that, and we were in the second night recording, and he walked down the hall. He goes, "Come here." He goes, "You guys want to go out on tour with us in October, November? It's like a 22 night tour." You guys got to get a bus.
Oh, just a little 22-night tour.
You'll get paid. We're not going to charge you buy them, but it's expensive. Your tour bus is going to cost you a lot of money. You guys probably aren't going to make a lot of money. We will pay you, though.
Yeah.
And generally, when you're a direct support act, which is basically what we do for a national act, you got to buy on. That nobody wants to touch you. You don't have a record label. You don't have what they call a book. You don't have hit songs. Nobody will touch you. And we still deal with that today. But, a lot of people know who we are. We're semi-successful, semi-national type act. So people in the industry do know who we are. And that does carry some validity, too, at times. But basically, Dean can tell you how we met Mark Kendall. go into all that. Our success is largely based on the contacts we've made by the shows
and networking. That's what we always
we were
say.
playing with Great White in '94 up in Reno, Nevada. I became friends with Mark, and then '98 we were doing some shows with them. '99 we were doing more shows with them, and he approached me and said, "I'm getting into this management of bands, and I want Sledd to be one of the bands I manage, but I want to produce your next record."
Nice.
So we did.
Nice.
We went up to L.A.
So artist development.
Bunch of different studios up there, laid tracks, worked with a guy named Jim Faraci, worked with Kendall, did a whole record up there, mixed it all.
And what do you think?
Album that's never been released.
We never even released a record.
But what do you think defines the sound of Sledd? Like we were talking about signature sounds.
I'll tell you
getting
what it was.
You want. You know,
it was the vocals and the heavy guitar and the big choruses.
Big choruses, like the over-the-top arena
and
sound, yeah?
And not shy of playing guitar, the guitars with a guitar solo. Really strong bass. One thing I remember when I first played in front of Troy Lucchetta, the drummer from Tesla, he's like, one thing I like about you as a player is you don't step on the vocals or the guitars. And he goes, a lot of guys don't get it. They want to be the next Neil Peart, but they step all over it. He goes, when you're a songwriter's drummer, you have to know where the pocket is and be able to play in the pocket and not step all over the vocals.
And cater to it, yeah.
And so he's like, you get it, bro.
That makes such a difference, too.
He goes, sometimes less is more. And he goes, that's what's made me a successful drummer. And this guy played with Keith Emerson's solo band for a while. Troy's played with everybody and anybody. Fantastic drummer. People don't realize how good he was. Ronnie Montrose band. He's played with everybody. And just a terrific guy. And one thing I like about Troy is he's down to earth. He's a real down to earth guy. You tell it like it is.
It's funny when Brian took us out on tour. He said to Dean and I, it was just ironically the two of us. He goes, "Well, there may be times you guys are probably going to get booed off the stage." And Dean said, "Hey man, check it out." He goes, "We may not be Tesla, we may not be a rock and roll Hall of Fame type act, but we'll never get booed off any stage. We've never been booed off of a stage."
Holy Mary, no.
Well, tell us a fun story about when you were like, say, on stage. What's the biggest crowds you've played for, and what stadiums?
Well,
7,500 to 10,000, I'd say. Probably opening night in North Dakota was almost 10,000 people.
Huge crowd. We drove 3.5 days to Newtown, North Dakota. But here's the thing. People are driving 200, 400 miles round trip. So you're in the middle of nowhere, and we're in this giant, hall. Yeah, there had to be about 78,000 people. It was an immense crowd.
Fun.
We also got to go home and play in New York. We got to play at the Capital One Bank Theater, which, you being a Long Island girl, you know that. And that was amazing.
Chicago and Indianapolis had some really nice theaters. 5,000, 7,500. Just big venues.
And that's cool. So tell the average listener who is a musician, how do you take your band from being, say, a garage band and or a bar band and get to that next level?
Well, for us, it was opening up and doing national concerts. We basically became the house band at 4th and B for years.
The Bacchanal, we played many
shows.
And
the Bacchanal, and Nemesis was an original act at one point besides being a cover band. And we pretty much just ended that whole facade of Nemesis. And we said Nemesis will be the cover act. Sled's going to be the original act.
Right.
We wound up opening up for anybody and everybody.
Yep.
Then we started going to Reno, Nevada, and Las Vegas, and Arizona, and doing concerts with all these different people. Great White took us out on the road with them. The Bullet Boys took us out on a tour with Gilby Clarke and Slash. We did Sacramento. We did Vegas. We did San Francisco. We did Modesto. We did Fresno. And that's how we started making a name. We're playing one night with Gilby Clarke. He's got Tracy Guns in the band, Brian Tishy playing drums.
A friend of ours.
Just, tremendous
so you changed
musicians.
your branding. So,
and then Sledd was now also starting to get a reputation. You know what I mean?
Because they're being heard and seen by a different
queue
of people.
If you want to be big, you got to think big.
Right.
And however big you get, or we get, or anybody gets, there's in this business, there's a lot more failure than there is success. It's like being a baseball player. If you get 3 hits and 10 at bats, you're a pretty successful baseball player in 300. Well, it's pretty much the same way on our end too. We get rejected more, we get turned down more, we get told no more. We've been told no, but we've been signed to a couple different record labels. But you can never focus on what isn't going to happen.
Well, tell us the Eddie Van Halen story real quick.
The first day I came to California, was to visit 1983, and I went to this Laurel Canyon 76 station, and I was with my friend Michael Gilbert, who was a recording engineer at what studio was it? Is up there.
Try to give them a shout.
It was Cherokee.
There you go.
Nice.
And we were on our way. He was going to do a session with Tom McCleary from the Commodores, and this dude pulls in his Lamborghini Countach, and it's Eddie Van Halen. And him and I wound up talking about John Williams, the classical guitar player, the whole time he was there.
Right.
Great guy. He was actually pretty cool, and it's
it's
weird how you meet
of all the
people.
great music.
Dean and I had an
Williams,
opportunity. We were playing in a blues band with a guy named Tommy Budd here locally. Tommy passed away a couple of years ago. Tommy was a good guy. He really had a lot of passion for blues, and so he tells me about the gig. He goes, "Hey man, we're gonna be open for Buddy Miles." So that was we were in the opening band, the Windy City Blues Band, and then about 6 or 7 months later, he said, "Look, Buddy's coming back to town, man, and he's basically going to be fronting the band. I'll be playing a little harp, he'll be playing some drums, but he wants you and your brother on stage." And I did some other shows with Buddy as well, and I got one of the greatest compliments I've ever been paid personally in my life. Buddy Miles came up to me and he said to me, "Hey, what's your name, keyboard player?" I said, "I'm Pete DeLuke." I said, "It's such an honor to meet you, buddy." He goes, "You know what, Pete DeLuke? You play your white boy ass off." You talk about a compliment, man.
Yeah.
I mean, and that just always stuck with me. I mean, that made me, if I ever had any doubt on what I could or couldn't do, it made me believe that somebody who's had a lot of success recognized, man, maybe my ability, but maybe more my passion.
Yeah.
Another cool story is we were in Nashville. And we just got done with the set, and I got a towel over my head. And there's this dude with a hat and a big cigar going. And I turn around, it's Kid Rock. He goes, "Hey, you guys rock, dude. You guys are a badass band. How come I never heard of you?" And
You're like,
we talked a little bit.
Actually coming up the ramp to go on stage before Tesla. It was a Monday night. It was right after the CMAs. And there he was. He's like, "What's up, guys? Go kill it."
See,
man.
I didn't see him. I saw him afterwards.
Yeah, I saw him before. I said, "Man, Kid Rock, baby." I said, "Right on, man. Come on."
Another tremendous moment in our history, Pete and I, in 1991, we were playing in Reno, Nevada.
With Nemesis, yeah.
And he tells me, he goes, "Dude, you're not going to believe who's in the street." I go, "Who's in the seats?"
Well, no, hold on. It was the radio station was doing a big promo. And I'd heard in the afternoon. I was over there listening. I was over practicing. We were on the road. The only time we used to rehearse sometimes in the afternoons when we were on the road, work stuff out. I'd go over and practice too. So I heard the radio station in Reno and Lake Tyler announcing that Jimmy Page was going to be making a cameo appearance at Del Mar Station tonight.
Wow!
And we knew we were performing. It was
right.
a Friday night, and I went over around. We played like 10:30 to 4 in those days in Reno. And I walked in probably around 8:30, and there he was.
Wow!
And he was 2 feet from me. And Led Zeppelin is my all-time,
of course,
favorite.
Iconic.
Who
Yeah.
When it comes to songwriting and that influence and passion for me, Led Zeppelin was it.
Yeah.
And
So, get to the story is he left, and he wound up back around 11 o'clock at night, and they had roped off a whole section. And I just got done with the set and broke a drum skin, and I went and got my skin, and he's like, "Come over here."
Security.
So I'm sitting down talking to him for about 15 minutes. I wouldn't leave. Coverdale's there. He's there.
Coverdale.
They were working on the Coverdale Page record.
Excellent.
And I was like, "Wow, man." He goes, "You guys are quite good." He goes, and we played the Immigrant Song. And
we did a medley. We used to have a
Did you feel suddenly very brave?
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I'll tell you
I
what.
got big balls.
No, you know what? You just play it, and if he likes it, he likes it. If he doesn't, he doesn't.
Actually,
And
you know
that's
what,
what it is.
I got to tell you, knowing that he was out there, I probably was never so nervous before my.
Right.
How many musicians get to say Dave entertained Jimmy Page?
That's
Not
right.
one,
He came back the
not
next
two.
weekend.
Yeah.
That's right.
And he hooked me up with this dude, Richard Aaron, that owned this record label, and Granny's house, which is a world-renowned recording studio.
Right.
He tells me and Paul to stop by Granny's house to meet him on that
sure.
Sunday when we're leaving town. We did stop by. We met Richard Aaron, the guy that owned this label. He was not there, but he hooked us up with
Came
this
down
guy.
and saw us in San Diego.
I hate to say it, you guys, we've been having a great conversation here with Peter DeLuke Sr., Peter DeLuke Jr., and Dino
of
DeLuke,
Sledd
of course.
and Nemesis.
Yes, but we are down to the last, basically probably minute of the show.
Holy smokes.
So we're just going to ask one quick question, you guys. We usually do quattros, which is 4, but since we don't have time for 4, we're going to do 1. So what is your favorite decade of music? And if you had to be stuck in any decade, what would it be? Dino?
Probably the 70s for me.
Okay.
Ooh.
And then Peter Jr.?
You know, amazingly up the 90s.
Love
90s,
it.
Okay. And then, of course, Peter Sr.?
Well, I would say between the 40s and 50s and part of the 60s.
There you go.
I like it. Very modern.
Multi-level there.
We're asking that because we just love to see what, where your joy is and where your passion. And we all want to be stuck on that island somewhere with the music that we love. It's like kind of that eye in the sky. We are Girls Talk Rock, and we're going to be continuing this conversation afterwards. For our listeners, you guys can go to the website at innertalkradio.com and Girls Talk Rock, and we'll let you know some of the answers to our full quattros and also where you can find Sledd playing
shows.
Yes, we're going to close out with that.
Sledd is playing New Year's Eve this next Saturday night, the 31st of December. We're going to be at a small club called the Casino in Alpine. And we are friends in the Bedpost Buzzards, and the Alternatives will be joining us. We have a big surprise for the Sledd heads, who we call our fans and our friends. It's something they don't want to miss, and any of you that can make it out there. Nemesis is playing this Friday night. We're doing our Christmas party at a place called The Landing in El Cajon, 8 to 12. And if you want some good classic 80s
El Cajon, that sounds
cover
so
rock
fun.
and roll, we'll be celebrating 30 years next year with Nemesis.
30 years.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
All right, well, I am Tracy Smith.
I'm Beth Venus.
And we're Girls Talk Rock. And we were so happy to have the DeLuke family on tonight.
You have somewhere to be on this Friday is the 23rd. Of course, if you want to be out in La Mesa, you can see Nemesis doing their 80s. And of course, Silver Tiger is doing their production show at House of Blues.
And be sure to stop over at Sheldon's on Saturday and Sunday mornings and see all the amazing singer-songwriters.
People doing their thing.
That's right.
We want to just invite everybody to stay tuned with Enter Talk because we have so many great events coming in 2017.
We're going to start talking NAMM.
We can't contain ourselves. Oh, she said it. You mentioned something.
I said NAMM.
Said NAMM. But we have had the wonderful guests we have today. Tune in with us if you want to know more about their tour dates upcoming.
All right, go to sleddweb.com. We'll see you guys next week.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Peter Sr.
Thank you,
and of
ladies.
course, thank you so much,
having
Dino.
us. Thanks so much.
And happy holidays. Happy holidays.
Happy New Year, you guys.
All right, we're out. We'll see you next week.